Hi everyone and welcome to another edition of CertiK Product Insights. You have myself, Aaron Leibowitz, as one host, and Kayvon as your other host. I'm a product marketing manager, and Kayvon is a product manager here at CertiK. Today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Terra. Kayvon, you want to bring up the CertiK.com page?
Yeah.
Awesome. So what we're going to see here is the security leaderboard that you land at CertiK.com. Scrolling down, you'll see top projects, many of which you'll be familiar with. Number one on the leaderboard now is Terra, who we're here to talk about today. So let's go ahead and dive in. Kayvon, you want to take us down from the top?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, Tara's been onboarded with us, I think for about a year and a half now. You can see here that they were onboarded on September 1st, 2020. And, they've been the number one project for about a week or so. Security has been very tight with them. We've had a great relationship in terms of audit as well as Skynet for Terra. That's why you can see the security score enabled here by Skynet. You can see that their 30-day range is between a 91 and a 97, one of the highest that we have on our site. And you can see about the 30-day history on here as well. We also have all of the live links over here. So if you were curious about accessing their website, their coin market cap, their GitHub, whatever it is, you can use these links as a verifiably safe way of accessing their social profiles and their token profiles. And then we also have a few other tabs that can highlight market cap, token price, and whatnot.
So you guys might notice there's a little bit of a redesign here up top. These tabs that Kayvon's looking through now are much prettier and really easy to read. So looking at the market cap, 25 billion is quite a serious market cap. What is the 24-hour change there? We're down 8% and 11% on the 7-day.
Yeah, I think 8.5% on the daily, and then about 11% on the weekly, which actually isn't too bad compared to some of the other tokens that have taken.
Yeah, if we're looking at the market in the last few days, that doesn't seem too bad at all. So continuing down here, actually, first let's go on the right side, the key statistics up there. That's sort of your overall high-level report of what's going on here. You have the security score. Kayvon, you want to explain these badges?
Yeah, totally. So we can see on this badge that Terra has Skynet enabled. So this is the Skynet badge. CertiK also just released the KYC service today. So we're officially offering KYCs for project teams. So if you have a KYC completed with CertiK as well, you'll have a KYC badge that appears on here. And then in terms of audits, we have one comprehensive audit that we did for Terra. They're not currently enrolled in our CertiK Shield program, so that's why you see 0 CTK over there. And then you can also view the token price as well as the market cap over here. And then we have a sentiment gauge as well, where we ask the community, how do you feel about this project security today? So you can just kind of click like what you're feeling or what the community is feeling, and then once you vote on that, you can see what the average score is and how many people have voted.
That's a lot of votes. What's the time frame that we keep votes on?
I think it might just be like a monthly.
Mm-hmm. Got it. You'll notice the request a CertiK audit button there. You can also at the top see a request a quote button. If you're a project owner or any type of engineer looking for an audit, go ahead and click those, fill out the forms, and our team will get back to you. So why don't we continue down here? We can even click into the audit real quick, take a look at what's going on there. Actually, before we click in, let's this audit overview right here, that is the findings from the audit. It's really nice and straight, right on the front page for you to see. No critical, no major, no medium, 2 minor, and 7 informational errors, which is pretty great to see. Why don't we click into the audit and just take a look at what an actual audit report looks like?
Yeah. I think so. Terra was audited by us quite a while ago. So they were audited by us in 2020. I think at the time they had a Golang framework. So they're built using the Cosmos SDK. So you can see here where the language, the request date, the revision date, kind of everything that happened in between. And then, as you mentioned, sort of no major findings were found at all here. There were about 2 minor and 7 informational. They chose not to implement the changes, but given that they're minor and informational, I think that's all. That was all fine in terms of security from them.
Yeah, for sure. So continuing down to Skynet, we see a little bit of a new graph here. 3 top sentiments that are used for the graph now. Do you want to sort of explain those?
Sure,
Sure,
yeah.
yeah.
So
So
for
for
um,
um
for
for
Terra,
Terra,
since they're
since they're
not on
not
one
on
of the
one of the
platforms
platforms
that
that
Skynet
Skynet
kind of
kind of
made
made
natively
natively
integrated
integrated
with,
with,
you'll
you'll
see
see
these
these
three main factors on here across that social sentiment, market volatility, and safety assessment. So from a social sentiment side, we can kind of scroll down here and see how the sentiment for Luna's social profiles have been over the last couple days. So I really like going in at a weekly view and then kind of looking at like the last 10 weeks to see, how things have been, or we can kind of adjust to a 7-week period here. Maybe it shows the data a little bit cleaner. And so starting from the left-hand side, very positive recognition on social profiles. So this is our sentiment analysis. It basically scans Twitter and looks for all mentions related to Terra and looking for whether, that sentiment is positive, negative, or neutral. So for Terra, we have about a 95% non-negative recognition. About only 5% of it is actually negative and 20% of it is positive, the rest being neutral. Pretty steady over the last day and week. It's been up about 1.5%. And then on the social profile side, this has been really interesting. So on the left here, we can see the total number of favorites that they've accumulated over this period. And you see a huge jump from, I think January 17th here, all the way going into January 24th. So that gives us some interesting insight into, what something may have taken place during that period of time that caused a lot of social activity. Maybe it was a very viral tweet, some partnership announcement, something like that. You can always kind of like dig in deeper once you see that data. And then in the middle here, we can see a chart that overlays their Twitter account activity. So, a lot of times for maybe smaller projects, you want to see, is this project still alive? Is it still very active? So you can see on the blue line here, it shows the number of tweets by the project itself. And then on the yellow line, you can see the number of mentions. So, other people doing an on Twitter about the project. So it kind of gives you some insight into like the social buzz. And again, fairly consistent for Terra across the board over the
for the
last
last
couple of
couple of
weeks.
weeks.
The final metric I want
I
to
want to
So I was
highlight
just going to
here
say,
is,
if you guys want to find out what did happen to cause that jump, I had Tara on the Security Leaderboard live showcase last week. I would go ahead and watch that episode and see what they had to say.
oh yeah, dropping a little bit of alpha for you guys there. Yeah, and the final chart to highlight here is their total number of followers that they gained on their Twitter account. So a lot of times, like if you look at like what the rate of change in terms of number of followers on Twitter is, you can get some insight into how active a project is, how much they're blowing up, how much traction they're gaining. So, we see like a little bit of a drop off here on the bar chart coming into like beginning of December, kind of mid-December timeframe. And then all of a sudden a huge surge towards the end of the year. And that actually coincided with like a huge price run up from Terra. But ever since then, we're seeing like a little bit of a drop off in terms of daily new followers on Twitter. Just kind of like a consistent, steady drop off, which obviously isn't a great indicator. But I think that's probably more of an indicator of the market at large than anything. And then finally, what we can see here is the social keyword aggregator. So, what are people discussing with Terra? Sometimes there's some alpha embedded in here where you can see, maybe the same types of people that want to talk about Luna or talking about other projects. So here we can see the larger tokens that they're talking about are BTC, BNB, ETH, AVAX, Matic, Solana, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, interestingly, UST there, which is their stablecoin, is much smaller than Luna and even Bitcoin, similar size to Sol. Definitely curious what people are chatting about around that.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's, I don't know like how many people actually understand how closely integrated UST and Luna are in terms of, its purpose as a blockchain is to support Terra, which is the stable coin that they formed on there. So that's a really good insight.
Yeah. That is a good point you bring up. A lot of people might not understand that relationship between the two. The Terra blockchain is mostly stablecoin focused for DeFi in general. That's their sort of strategy, is to really be stablecoin based and build all of the dApps off of their stablecoin as the denomination.
Totally.
Should we head over to the market tab and check out what's going on there?
Yeah, definitely. So coming on the market tab here, we can see a number of different things. So on the left side here, we see the chart for just overall market cap. You can kind of adjust that between a 7-day, 14-day, and 30-day basis. See how the market cap is doing. Obviously an indicator of price most of the time. And then my favorite metric on here is actually market volatility. So market volatility is going to be a measure of like the price change relative to some aggregate level of benchmarks. So in our case, we primarily use Ethereum for most projects, but also a weighted basket of other cryptos, just to see like, relative to other cryptocurrencies, how is Luna holding up, which had been really strong actually up until about 2 weeks ago. And then we see like a big drop off here in terms of market volatility, which means that it's been quite volatile.
So closer to 1 is less volatile?
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. And then up here, we have the volatility score itself that's kind of fed into the overall market cap score. We have the token price, trading volume across exchanges, which has been massive, billions of dollars being traded.
That's a crazy volume.
Yeah. And then the overall circulating supply for Luna as well. And then finally down here, we can see the exchanges that Luna is listed on. So these are all the exchanges that we track. There's like 34 pages, with each page having about 3 exchanges listed on there. So you can do the math, like almost over 100 pairs that we're tracking and feeding into this data. And then what percentage of the volume is kind of being fed into there as well. So yeah, it's pretty interesting insight.
Absolutely. Going back up, let's click into the security tab real quick and see what we have going on there. Safety tab, sorry.
Totally. Yeah, so safety tab, this is the only non-dynamic tab within Skynet. So with this tab, every time that we onboard a project, we have a couple of our security experts look into the project's details, look into their source code, look across all of the metrics that you can see here. Did they have any past exploits or incidents? Do they have bug bounties? Do they have established reputations? Do they have historical audits? Are they decentralized? A lot of different factors here, and then we kind of feed that as like a qualitative assessment of the project across these different areas. And as you can see, obviously, like across the board, very green, almost near perfect score for everything. I think the only thing that Terra might be lacking a little bit is insurance and protections, but even in that case, it's I think they still have some things in place, so it's like a mostly neutral score.
Yeah. One thing I do want to highlight there is the decentralization score. Decentralization is, people usually think of it as a binary, either decentralized or not decentralized. It's much more of a scale than that. Some projects are more decentralized than others. Some are fully decentralized, but a lot of projects that are, blockchains, main L1s even today, are not fully decentralized. So looking at that score can tell you a lot. If you want to read more about it, we did post a blog on what is decentralization. You can keep an eye out for an upcoming blog on what is centralization risk. So I think continuing down here, that was the 3 tabs up there, we can see our insights, one of my favorite parts of Skynet.
Yeah, so insights here, we do have to clarify that the data that you're seeing here is for a token called Wrapped Luna. So we're tracking all the Luna activity specifically on the Ethereum blockchain. Currently, Skynet is not natively enabled within Luna. I think that's what I mentioned with there only being kind of 3 parameters that fed into the score. But on the on-chain perspective, we're able to kind of track this wrapped version of Luna, which gives us a good insight into Luna itself. So starting up here in terms of the token charts, we can see the token price and number of token transfers. This is currently in a 30-day view, so it doesn't really give too much insight. I like to expand it a little bit myself to see if there's any kind of changes on the 90-day view. And in terms of token transfers, you can see kind of a pickup in activity of token transfers around this end of November, beginning of December timeframe, which did coincide with the price spike. But then activity has just been kind of steadily pretty low ever since Christmas time. You can pretty notably see the changes in activity on there. And then coming down to these on-chain data metrics, you can look at daily transactions on the left and then daily active users on the right. We'll push that out into a 90-day view as well. And what I find interesting about this, Aaron, is that while we see like a drop off in token transfers and token price, we're seeing a pretty good pickup in terms of daily transactions and daily active users. And
can you explain the difference between token transfers and Daily transactions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
totally.
So
So
token transfers is simply, you're transferring wrapped Luna from one wallet to another. Whereas token transactions looks more like how much are you interacting with uh, with the dApps that are associated with the project, or how much are you transacting the tokens on an exchange. Um, Basically having like more of like an interaction level with the smart contracts versus like simply a transfer
That makes a lot of
level of
sense right there.
activity. Yeah,
Yeah, and those are two good pieces of data to look at, sort of for comparison. It is interesting to see the transfers dropping off while the transactions picking up. That might tell you that people are actually interacting a lot more with the dApps built on top of Terra or the exchanges that are offering it, or in this case,
totally.
W Luna. So moving down from insights, we can see liquidity metrics. And we do have to again say that this is wrapped Luna on the ERC20 on the ETH blockchain. It is not native Luna, as Kayvon mentioned before. We're not tracking the Terra blockchain yet. Maybe we'll look to include that in the future. We'll have to see.
Definitely will. Yeah. I think, what's interesting looking at like the wrapped pair at least is that it has a pretty good amount of liquidity. So across the different dexes that we monitor, which is mainly Uniswap, SushiSwap, and then other forks of Uniswap that are across like different exchanges, there's about $14.5 million worth of liquidity, about $4.5 million worth of daily volume, which in liquidity terms, it's actually dropped off quite a bit in the last week, but volume has gone up a lot. I think it's like up about 60% in the last 7 days.
Those two could actually make sense together if you're thinking about people pulling liquidity and selling it, adding to daily volume.
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
great
that's a
point
great point
actually.
actually.
Mhm.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
we can
what we can
do on the charting side too is like we can look at like, where was really this drop off in liquidity. And for us it was around Christmas, so like 2 to 3 weeks ago, like pretty significant drop off. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change it to the 30-day view, and you can see these charts are like they're pretty cool, they're interactive, and they can kind of show you like how things change. So around, what is this, January 6th, January 7th, the liquidity dropped down to like about 16 million from like 2021 million, and then kind of continually dropped off these last couple of days as well. Around the same time that there was that big liquidity drop off, there was a huge spike in volume. So I think you're absolutely right, Aaron. It's like someone just took out a bunch of LP funding with wrapped Luna and then just sold it on a DEX.
Well, why don't we find out if that's the case? Let's click on that top remove liquidity tab and see what's going on here. There you
Yep.
go.
Yep.
2.4 million pulled out 2 weeks ago.
There you
There you
go.
go.
That would be a huge drop off. And that type of removal of liquidity can scare other liquidity providers and maybe get them, because you see the second one, the rest of the page is 2 to 3 months ago. So the rest of the liquidity, that other 4 million, probably came from smaller liquidity providers pulling out after seeing a big drop in liquidity. Although I would have to imagine that liquidity provider fees went way up when that liquidity was removed. So personally, as somebody who does yield farm sometimes, or liquidity mine, I might leave my liquidity in there.
Yeah, it might be a good time actually right now to go be an LP for Luna, considering how much the volume's gone up too.
Yeah, for sure. So having a wrapped ETH in Luna is a good metric, and then looking at it against USDT, a stablecoin, is also a another great way to look at it. That's the only other liquidity pair that we really track on Skynet. Oh, never mind. I didn't realize we had so many here.
Yeah, so
Yeah. So
usually,
usually,
we
we
follow the
follow the
major
major
pairs,
pairs:
USDC,
USDC,
USDT,
USDT,
wrapped
wrapped
Ethereum,
Ethereum,
BNB for BSC based exchanges. And
and
as you kind of click on here, we'll have like the pair that has like the greatest amount of liquidity all the way kind of down to the pair that has the least amount of liquidity. So there's like a Luna WETH wrapped ETH pair on SushiSwap, $17,000 worth of liquidity, whereas like the primary one on Uniswap has $7 million of liquidity. So yeah, quite a big difference. One thing I did want to actually point out over here, Aaron, is, if you're ever curious to track the wallet or try to understand like, if this person that's removing liquidity, who are they? Why did they remove liquidity? And what did they do with that funding? You can actually click into the transaction and then it'll open up the Etherscan for the address. So you can look at like the other types of activity. And then we have another product known as Skytrace that can also be used in tandem with this. And what Skytrace does is it's a pretty cool wallet visualization tool. If you haven't checked it out already, Aaron actually did a great sample video that's kind of pinned on our main Twitter account. So go ahead and check that out. But what you can do is you can punch in the address that had the primary liquidity and then see what happened from there, right? Kind of just like follow the flow of funds, see where that money went, how it was sold, which other wallets maybe belong to this whale. So really cool way of kind of matching up our different free and community position products.
And it is a really fun tool, Skytrace. I frequently take addresses from here and track them, and then route to another exchange or address that they interact with, and you can see how much many different tokens a specific wallet is holding, who they're interacting with, all sorts of interesting data there. And as Kayvon mentioned, pinned at the top of the now called CertiK community Twitter account, where this is being streamed for those of you watching from Twitter, will be that Skytrace video showing you how to use it.
Yeah, awesome.
So moving on to the token holder distribution analysis, it's another great metric. You can see sort of a little bit of how decentralized is the token. Fair launch metrics are something that are pretty big in the community, have been for the last few years. And looking at the actual distribution percentages that the largest whale holds down to, the top 10 here, I mean, we get down to 0.6% for number 10, down from 15% from number 1. That's pretty good. And if we take a look at who that number 1 is, it's entirely possible that's an exchange wallet or other things like that would make sense to hold a ton of the token.
Yeah, I think you're right that it's an exchange wallet. I was looking at it earlier and it seemed like they had a lot of activity with Gemini. So, while we weren't able to identify that explicitly as a Gemini wallet, I think it's pretty notable that Gemini actually has like one of the biggest supplies of wrapped Luna. Not really sure why that is. Maybe that's something that our users can look into and find some alpha about that.
Tweet out to us if you guys find anything.
Yeah. And then on the left side here, what we can see on the token distribution holder analysis, there's about 20,000 wallets that hold wrapped Luna as a token. And then, as you mentioned, Aaron, how decentralized is it? One of the metrics that we like to use is how many wallets hold 50% of the token supply. A lot of the times, actually, if you look at the other projects that are on Skynet, they might be just 2 or 3 wallets that hold the majority of the supply. Maybe it's a staking wallet. I think there is like some additional context to be had there, but in Luna's case, 24 wallets is pretty good, and pretty distributed kind of across the board. And then what we can see on the bottom side here is the daily new users. So like these are brand new wallets that have never held wrapped Luna that are acquiring wrapped Luna. And that's just on an uptrend, which again is very surprising, kind of given these market conditions, like how Luna is doing so well. So I think this is something worth looking into.
Absolutely. I think that brings us to the bottom of Skynet for Luna. I think this was a really interesting overview. You guys should definitely take a look at the other tools we mentioned and that Skytrace video. Learn how to use it, play around with it. Tweet out at us anything that you guys find that'll be, as Kayvon said, maybe some alpha, maybe some inconsistencies that you guys are curious about. We'll make sure to respond. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and you can catch us next week for another episode. Bye guys.